We still need about 40 more people trained to be part of our public access television show. So if you have an interest, there's a sign-in sheet back here for you to become involved with public access. You can be a director, you can be a camera operator, you can be a floor director, you can be an editor, or you can just come in and give us moral support. And you can still come in and be interviewed, whatever your particular interest might be. Our show comes on Cox Communications, Channel 18 in North County, and Channel 23 in Southern San Diego. Our second show, we don't have a time slot for it just yet. Now, the objective for this is that we're involved in a public information campaign. That means to make the public aware of what various issues are. A lot of people are not aware, for example, that San Diego is in last place in the United States in terms of people getting food stamps that are qualified to get them. People are not aware that our prison population is the largest in the entire world in this country, according to the latest Pew report. So there are various things of that nature that we intend to get out. We can't really depend on the mainstream media, as many of you may or may not know, to get our coverage out. You see stories about bears falling out of trees, but you don't see the real stuff. You don't see the stuff that's really going on. You don't see the things that we were accomplishing in terms of fighting back against the Iraq War, or what we're doing as far as exposing the truth on 9/11, et cetera, et cetera. They don't cover us. I fed over 400 people one time at the Bronze Triangle. I used to go out every Christmas and Thanksgiving, and one news agency showed up, and they charged me to take pictures. But if I had killed 400 people, it would have been helicopters and everything flying around to cover the story, you understand? So they don't want us to know that we're doing good things. They want us to be separated by race, gender, religion. They want that. We have to, as citizens, begin a grassroots effort to fight back and take our country back. And that's why we have Mr. Bob Bowman here to talk to us, and we're very privileged to have him here for that. Now, I passed out this flyer, so I hope everybody's got one. One of the great things about this is that if you join the Community Coalition, you'll be able to get email updates, and it'll limit the amount of emails I have to send out to everybody. And it will also optimize your website, and we'll talk further about that later on. I don't want to go into that too much. There's also a blog that we have on here where it says SD Mega Coalition blog, and we're keeping track of various articles and things that come out that are germane to what our efforts are. So please take advantage of the blog and start putting comments on it and emailing your responses in as well. A couple of important events coming up. Our next public access training will be on the 10th of October at Cox Communications in El Cajon at 6 o'clock. The address I don't publish readily because, sometimes you get some pretty unusual people that come, and I need to kind of screen people. I don't really want people to start an episode at the Cox studio, if you know what I mean. But anyway, our next training will be on the 10th of October at 6 p.m. and that will be the Elise Smith Cooper Community Issues, a Tapestry of Concerns show that is currently on the air. And on the 24th of October, we'll have our next edition of Progress in San Diego. Again, 6 p.m. at Cox Communications. Now, the significant thing that's going on is that I'm intending that each one of you get your own television show for your own respective organizations, which means you have to go through the Cox producer training. So the training I'm doing is to help you learn to staff your show. So in other words, you have to provide your own camera people, your own directors, etc. So you get that by working with my show, and then we will staff your show for you. You understand what I'm saying? You can use my camera people because we're all each other's camera person and director. You see, it's a community-based television show. And I want to have like 67 of these if I can. I want everybody in here to get their own show for your own organization. So in order to do that, you have to go through the producer training. Cox only gives producer training about twice a year. So the next producer training is coming up in November. That's why it's intrinsic that you understand what I'm saying now. On the 28th of October, you have to call Cox Communication and reserve your spot for the producer training if you're going to get a show for your organization. Not the 27th, not the 29th. It has to be done on the 28th, and I'll give you the number for that. The producer training will occur on the 7th and 8th of November. The 7th is a Friday. It'll be between 4 o'clock p.m. and 10 o'clock at night, and then you come back Saturday morning between 8 in the morning and 4 in the evening, and you'll be a producer, and then you can start production on your show. You have to put 6 shows together before you go on the air, which is what we're doing right now with Progress in San Diego. Any questions about that? Yes, ma'am.
What is the definition of a qualified organization?
Well, you don't really have to have an organization. It could be you as an individual.
Can it be a private company, a small business?
It can be a private company, a small business. Every cable provider has to provide airtime for the public. So, Time Warner, AT&T, Cox Communications, they all have to provide airtime for the public. So that's why it's called public access. And it's free. So the studio is free, the camera equipment is free, the training is free. You just have to take advantage of it. You can have a 28-minute show, or I think it's 56 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. And my show is going to come on every other, well, we're going to alternate. It's going to be like an A-B show, like that. So you don't have to have a nonprofit. You don't have to have a company. You can be an individual and have your own. So the main thing is that I want people to start getting involved in the media and help us take control of our own media. Yes, ma'am.
I'm so glad to hear you saying this. But also, are these all in-studio productions, or can they be on the street?
Good question. You don't have to do everything in the studio. In fact, we have a very high-tech studio in Carlsbad where we do high-definition recordings. You can do it on the street. You can do things at various meetings throughout the area. You do not have to be in the Cox Communication studio. However, you want to have very high-quality material, right? And so the opportunity to get that high-quality material at a low cost is greater at Cox. However, no, you do not have to be in the studio. You can use your regular camcorder and go out and make your movies. And we're going to do some of that too. We're going to do some on-spot interviews of various organizations to put on our own television stations. So what I want is 75 new progressive television stations to fight back. Thank you. Thank you. Now, yes.
November what?
November 7th and 8th is going to be actual training.
Was it Friday and Saturday?
Friday and Saturday. Yes, sir.
Did you say the deadline was
28th.
October or?
October. You have to call October the 28th in order to reserve your spot in the producer training.
That's between 8 and 5.
No, you can call anytime. As long as they get your information on the voicemail, you're in. Now, you have to live in the Cox Communication area in order to be on Cox, just so you know that the Cox service area. However, if you're in AT&T or Time Warner, they have the same thing. You see what I'm saying? The next step is that we're going to become qualified producers on AT&T and Time Warner. So we're going to be expanding. You have to bring a utility bill to show that you live in the area. That's the way that they know that you live in the Cox Communications area. I recommend bringing a partner that so they can be a co-producer with you as well. Keep in mind that the people that sign up to be the producers have to be in the studio at the time the recordings are made. So in other words, you can't, as Activist San Diego or San Diego 9/11 Truth, become a producer and then just sign the show over to somebody else. You have to be there. You see what I'm saying? You're responsible for the set in terms of how it's managed. We have regular trainings. If you want to see how everything goes, the next training that we have where you can observe us doing this is going to be on the 10th of October at Cox Communications. And then again, it'll occur on the 24th. That way you kind of get an idea of what we're doing. Does that make sense? Any other questions about that? Yes, sir.
You're not doing anything on Time Warner presently?
Not presently, but I intend to expand the Time Warner very soon. It's just, it's time consideration right now, that's all. One of you can do it, and then help with the rest of us get trained. I mean, it doesn't have to just be me for that matter. Somebody else have a question?
Yeah. What if we have a documentary we want to show? A documentary that's already done?
Yes, we can put a documentary out that you've already done. We have a very talented director and editor, and that's, where's Larry? Larry Bird is our man for handling directing and doing editing. In fact, we're going to have an advanced editing class so you can learn how to take that material that you have and slice it into one of our shows. When is that, Larry? 28th of September?
It's going to happen on the 27th.
27th? That's a Saturday, right?
September 9 to 1 Saturday.
Yeah, we're going to have an editing of some of our current shows on the 27th. So if some of you want to get a hands-on thing in terms of learning how to edit, please come out or give me a call. You can come out on the 27th to learn how to do that. And there's going to be a private session where we go into great details in terms of the technical management part. I don't have a date for that yet, but I'll be sending emails out on that. So there's going to be 2 editing sessions coming up in the near term. The definite one is going to be on the 27th, and that is going to be at what time?
And 9 o'clock, 9 a.m. to 1.
9 a.m. to 1 p.m. on the 27th. That's a Saturday. Of September, yes, for that. Most of the dates are already on this flyer. I'll be sending out, a detailed description in terms of what the dates are, but some of these things are just coming out at the last minute, so they didn't get put on this in time for printing. And I just want to give a big thanks to Laura Thompson. She's the one that's responsible for printing all these flyers up for us and doesn't charge us anything. She's been very important, and I want to also extend thanks to San Diego for 9/11 Truth. They're the reason that we have this space here at George Spears every time that we have a meeting. So you see, when we cooperate together, we can do great things together. That's the whole thing. Have any of you seen the interview I did with Congressman Bowman yet? Please watch that, okay? I emailed it out, and what Congressman Bowman said is so true. When I did the interview with him on the 3rd of July, he kept telling me that if we come out in great numbers and start the parade, he'll get in front of it. It makes sense. The politicians cannot start a crusade against prison reform. They can't start a crusade for 9/11 investigations by themselves. We have to demand that as citizens. So we have to field a great number of people so that our politicians that are willing can get in front of that parade. So again, this is why it's intrinsic that we build a grassroots organization, take our single issues and put them into one. And that's fighting for justice. And someone told me that justice means that you demonstrate love in public. That's the definition of justice. And we need that in this country, don't we? Lots of injustices, right? We have presidential directives. I'm afraid we're not going to have an election. Right? We have a presidential directive that says that there's a terrorist attack. The president can take control of all 3 branches of government. How can they get away with that? It's because we don't do anything. We sit back and let them do that to us. It's too late for that. We need to stop drinking all this beer, watching all these Charger games, playing around, but while we're watching the Charger game, they're giving billions of dollars away to these corporate entities that have been taking billions from us anyway, such as these insurance companies and these real estate companies. How much money are you paying for your mortgage and for your rent? You've already paid how much of your salary, but now they come back and now they're going to take our tax dollars. And why is that? Because we ain't going to do anything, but we're going to make them scared of us. We're not going to be reactionary. We're going to be Somebody was telling me that word. I was really struggling. I was like, oh, what's the word I want? Thank you. We're going to be proactive, unlike what my brain is right now. But when you're like cameraman and computer man and table man and chair man and microphone man, I guess I'm allowed to have a laptop memory every now and then. Right? I got that 50-year-old thing going on. I mean, just for men too. But anyway, have you noticed how we tend to be reactionary? We tend to say, well, they messed the election up. No, we're going to let them put them on notice. If you mess up the election this time, we're going to be all over you. They took 625,000 votes, right, Mike? In Ohio. They took 627,000 votes and trashed them in Ohio.
They were uncounted.
Uncounted. 627,000 votes, not 67,000. And guess who's running our elections here in San Diego County? The very same man that did that, Michael Gould.
Don't vote absentee.
Why are we standing for that? What's up with that?
We didn't have any say in their choice of him. We didn't have any say. We just.
Why don't you want to vote absentee?
Because they'll throw it out if there's not
unless the election is very close.
That's why the 625,000.
They said the election wasn't close enough to count the absentee votes.
So they don't even count them.
Don't vote on a machine, don't vote absentee. Don't vote the day of the election. Go to the voter registration the weekends before. Make sure that your vote is counted before you vote.
Question, are you talking about provisional or are you talking about absentee? Provisional, I can see that they could not count it for whatever subjective reason they had. Absentee has got to get into the system.
No, it's been in the mainstream here before. Why the previous election said they didn't count the absentee?
Well, let me focus on the provisional. The provisional in Ohio, it turned out in some sectors, big Democratic sectors, basically 2% of the provisionals were counted. It's a subjective thing. Someone can decide to not count them. So those, I think that's the one you have to stay away from. Maybe ask.
Colonel Ray talks quite a bit about this, and the problem with absentee, and provisional is certainly horrible, but absentee still goes through the same scanner. And what she is saying is that we need a transparent system and can count it, which we could do so easily. Anyway, Brian is very good.
Well, let's come back and let's go on with our little program here, but we have speakers and I don't want to waste your time. I just wanted to make, not a waste of time, I mean, but I want to be efficient. I'm missing words. I keep missing these words, thing branch. I want to be efficient with my time here, but these are important issues that I want to come back to, but I just want to make sure that we give our speakers the honor. And I want to thank everybody for coming out on this Sunday afternoon. I really appreciate everyone that came out. Like I said, I'll be here every third Sunday, even if I'm the only one. For as long as I can anyway. So with that, do we have any more questions about public access? Everybody's clear on that? Okay. Please join the community coalition so that I can only send one email to everybody as opposed to a bazillion. And I can not send you multiple emails. I don't want to spam you to death with thousands of emails. I'm trying to just keep you informed as much as possible. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Stephanie Monroe, who will come up and talk to us about CPI. They're doing some great work. Has anybody been on the CPI website? Check it out? Yeah. Stephanie? And please pick up some of the pamphlets back there on CPI. Thank you, ma'am. Stephanie?
Hi, nice to see everyone here. Thank you very much for inviting me. Still kind of learning what you guys are working on. Who here knows about CPI? Okay, so I'll start there. Center on Policy Initiatives. Most folks know about us in terms of being kind of a think tank plus. So we do a lot of research, in particular on issues of low-wage poverty. So poverty issues where folks are working full-time and still poor, that's kind of the main issue that we work on. And who here knows about the living wage ordinance that was passed in San Diego? That was us heading that coalition. So those are kind of the main ways that folks know about it. But we also do different kind of community work and public policy work here in San Diego. So I wanted to just kind of tell you about a couple things and then also invite you to something. So the two main priorities that we've had this year is we've been working on managed competition in the city. Who knows what managed competition is? Okay. Privatization, outsourcing, just kind of another word for all of that. The Mayor Sanders has been going about kind of restructuring the city and trying to outsource as much as possible. So we've been working on trying to kind of limit that and limit the, taking good public jobs and making them bad jobs. We've been kind of working on that issue, and then the other issue that we've been working on is responsible development. So in terms of who knows about who's read about the Marriott Hotel that's coming up over across from the convention center? That's on a site right next to Petco Park called Ballpark Village. And what we did, and this is just another testament to the power of getting together with other folks, but we put together a coalition around that particular development area. There's two huge parcels right there, right next to Petco Park and kind of in front of the convention center, just East Village, this new East Village area. And we put together a coalition, and we were able to win the Center City Development Corporation, which is the redevelopment agency arm for downtown. That agency and then Southeastern Development Corporation were not working so well, and we didn't kind of like what they were putting on the plate in terms of what we would get back from that development project. So we put a coalition together, and we simply negotiated directly with the developer. We just said, we're going to be opposing your development, and these are the things that we want. Sometimes, these ideas come like, whoa, can we do that? Yeah, we can do that. And it's actually being done all around the country. And I want to just let you guys know what we want here, just as a sense of, this is how we all start and get things done. But now, everything that's being built on that site has to be LEED standard, which is basically green building, a high green building standard. Actually, I'm going to leave you guys a list back there to look at, because there's a numerous kind of green initiatives that are put on anything that's going to be there. Living wage jobs, so all of the permanent jobs that are going to be created, regardless of what it is, office, residential, hotel, they must be at the living wage rate that San Diego's ordinance is at, which is $12.70 an hour, if they don't have health care benefits. $1.5 million towards a job training fund, targeted at ex-offenders and also at local residents of the area surrounding, so Barrio Logan, Logan Heights, Sherman Heights, all the areas right there surrounding that are going to be gentrified by this village moving east, or downtown that are moving east. Targeting 30% of the, kind of starting small, 30% of the construction jobs and also 30% of the permanent jobs to be for local folks from that area. So the combination of the job training to get them the jobs and then the requirement that they be local, that there's a certain percentage hired locally. Affordable housing at truly affordable levels. So there is a development project going up, a housing project going up at 16th and Market, Father Joe's Villages. And that's basically, there's nothing that has been built currently on the Ballpark Village site, but the only thing that has been built in terms of this project is the affordable housing. So I'm going to leave you guys a flyer for that, because the affordability levels are incredible. 136 units of family, very affordable housing right there in downtown. Unbelievable. Regular middle-income folks can be living downtown. 1.5 million towards a project that involves home ownership for folks in that neighborhood. $100,000 to do a study on gentrification of that neighborhood based on the growing of downtown east, and many other things. $50,000 above the city requirements for funding local artists, commitment to build a grocery store that pays living wages. All of these are the sort of things that we all can win when we get together. So I'm going to leave a list basically of the things that were won in that agreement and the members, the kind of community organizations that were involved in that coalition, so you guys know, and the flyer for the affordable housing that's being built now. It will be open. The waiting list is open, so if folks want a place to live, there you go. The main thing, though, I wanted to, so that's kind of the sort of thing that we do. What I wanted to invite everyone to is that who here has been reading about kind of the scandals around CCDC and SCDC, the redevelopment agency? Okay, you guys have been hearing about that. Currently there is no community discussion about what we want from redevelopment. We haven't been agreeing with redevelopment for a while now, and we've been feeling like it should be prioritizing things like living wage jobs and green and affordable housing and much more of that than we're currently getting. And there's been no discussion. Most folks don't know that aside from the choosing of the new heads of the organizations, all of the board members being thrown out and the new ones being chosen, they're also going through a restructuring of the entire redevelopment agency. And they're trying to put it through very quickly. They're trying to put it through by the end of the year because we have the turnover in the council members, and so they want to get it through with the current council. And so this is all being done extremely quickly. The current structure is not working, and yet there's not any planned discussion on how it should be, what we want. And so I have a flyer right back there, and you guys should definitely go back and get one. Unfortunately, there's a conflicting date because it's going to be a community forum. 150 or so folks hearing about what redevelopment has been in other areas, getting a kind of redevelopment 101, like what is redevelopment, for example, versus regular development. So kind of an education piece. and then, small group kind of table discussions, and for us to create a vision, and then to send cards to council members to say what it is that we want, so we can start taking hold of the media and the discussion, framing the debate from our standpoint. So that's going to be October 10th. Unfortunately, that's a Friday evening, and it is conflicting with what you guys have going on. But so 6 to 8 p.m. at the War Memorial Building, right across from Roosevelt Junior High, my junior high school, right there on Park, right before the zoo. As much free parking as you can possibly get from 6 to 8 p.m. So please grab one of those, and that would be a great way to become involved in some of the things that CPI does. So I'll leave that there. On many of these, there's a number, and that's my cell phone. So if you would like to get a hold of me for some other reason, these flyers will all be back there. So thank you to everyone for all the work that you're doing and for giving me the opportunity to let you know about some of this.
Our main speaker now is Dr. Bob Bowman from Melbourne, Florida. Dr. Robert Bowman, Lieutenant Colonel, United States Air Force, retired as a National Commander of the Patriots, President of the Institute for Space and Security Studies, Executive Vice President of Millennium 3 Corporation, and retired presiding Archbishop of the United Catholic Church.
None of which bring a paycheck, by the way.
I know about that. Know a little bit. The recipient of the Eisenhower Medal, the George F. Kennan Peace Prize, the President's Medal of Veterans for Peace, the Republic Aviation Air Power Award, the Society of American Military Engineers, ROTC Medal of Merit twice, the Air Medal with 5 Oak Leaf clusters, the Meritorious Service Medal, and numerous other awards. He is one of the country's foremost authorities on national security. Colonel Bowman flew 101 combat missions as a fighter pilot in Vietnam and directed all Department of Defense Star Wars programs under Presidents Ford and Carter. He has been an executive in both government and industry, and he's chaired 8 major international conferences. Professor Bowman taught at 5 colleges and universities, serving as department head and assistant dean. His PhD is in aeronautics and nuclear engineering from Caltech. He has lectured at the National War College, the United Nations Congressional Caucuses, the Academies of Science of 6 nations, and the House of Lords. Dr. Bob founded the Patriots, a group devoted to government which follows the Constitution, honors the truth, and serves the people. As part of this campaign, he has been a major speaker at 9/11 Truth conferences in Toronto, New York City, Washington, D.C., Chicago, Los Angeles, Melbourne, Boston, Detroit, Phoenix, Austin, and Sydney, Australia. Dr. Bob Bowman ran for president in the Reform Party in 2000 and was a Democratic candidate for the U.S. Congress from the 15th Congressional District of Florida in 2006. Bob and his wife of 52 years, Maggie, have 7 children and 21 grandchildren. And with that, I turn it over to Dr. Bob.
See if I can make this work. Thank you very much, and thank you for giving me this time. Thank you all for coming. Our organization, you heard about the Patriots and our long-term goals. We also have some short-term, immediate objectives. First one is to prevent an attack on Iran, which would probably destroy the United States as we know it. The second is to end the disastrous occupations of Iraq and Afghanistan. And the third, partly because it may be the only way to accomplish the first two, is to impeach or indict Cheney and Bush. As important as these short-term goals are, they are merely dealing with symptoms of a much larger problem, the domination of our government by a handful of billionaires and multinational corporations. And it's this larger problem that I'd like to deal with this evening. Not just by giving you a laundry list of what's wrong, but by showing you how things could be better. See, I have a vision for America, a vision I'd like to share with you. And I'd like to do it by giving you my inaugural address as the new radical president of the United States. So if you will pretend that I am speaking to you as President of the United States at my inauguration, the very first hour in office, and in the audience are all the members of Congress, government officials, and of course you, the American people. But by the way, I do encourage you to clap and cheer like crazy when you hear something you agree with, and sit on your hands when you don't. That way the people watching on television know what it is they're supposed to believe. That's the Washington way. My fellow Americans, we come together in a time of multiple crises. There's global warming, peak oil, the plummeting dollar, falling wages and rising prices, a spiraling deficit, the healthcare shortfall, immigration, housing foreclosures, our deteriorating infrastructure, high school dropouts, astronomical incarceration rates, homeless veterans, rising suicide rates, the loss of our civil liberties, a growing alienation from our allies around the world, crushing debt, hungry children, inexcusable poverty, and exhausted military stressed by disastrous wars, and unbelievably persistent ignorance and apathy among our people. Present company accepted, of course. The good news is that there are solutions for all these problems and crises. Solutions which have been worked out in considerable detail and have been available for some time. The only reason these solutions have not been implemented is that they reduce the profits of giant corporations who exercise control over our government. You see, corporations over the last about 150 years have increasingly escaped government regulation and have accumulated political rights as if they were persons. This has included so-called First Amendment free speech rights to spend as much money as they want, buying up politicians, drafting legislation for their own profit, and buying up voters and elections through their corporate monopoly media. It's reached the point where foreign policy, international trade, and military decisions are made for short-term corporate profit to the detriment of the American people and our national security. Our government has become totally controlled by corporate interests. And this is the very definition of fascism. Our problems are not due to incompetence or inexperience or a government that's too big or too small. We have these problems because those in government no longer serve us. They serve their corporate masters and benefactors, and they have deliberately chosen policies which harm our nation and our people.
Yes.
Those of us who dedicate our lives to peace, economic justice, and environmental preservation can make little progress in our struggles so long as ultimate power is in the hands of those who profit from war, poverty, and pollution. But here comes the good news. Tonight, that power has come to an end. I didn't get here tonight by taking corporate millions. I didn't get here by selling myself to the insurance companies, the pharmaceutical companies, the oil companies. To be quite honest, I'm not sure how I got here. But here I am, and as long as I am President of the United States, this government will serve the interests, the needs of the people, not the greeds of the wealthy elite. Now, turning things around won't be easy. What our Constitution allows me to change, I shall, and I'll do it fast. But for much of what needs doing, I'll need the cooperation of you in Congress. And I ask for it tonight. You see, the Constitution does not make me the decider. Only the proposer and the implementer. You, the people's representatives in Congress, are the deciders. I am therefore vacating all the over 1,100 signing statements imposed by my predecessor. I'm revoking Presidential Directives 20 and 51, which give me dictatorial powers. I ask for repeal of the misnamed Patriot Act, the Military Commissions Act, and all the martial law and special and dictatorial powers acts passed in the last 8 years. This is not a monarchy, and I have no interest in being a dictator. Oh, I'll be called one, especially because of the sweeping changes I am instituting. After all, returning to the Constitution is not just a change, it's a revolution. The first American Revolution was when we broke free of the tyranny of King George III. The second was when the federal government became increasingly powerful and centralized and dominated by corporate interests, resulting in a new tyranny, most recently under another George. Tonight represents the flowering of the third American Revolution, when we the people once again throw off the shackles of tyranny and take back our country and our Constitution. Now, restoring the Constitution means ending the imperial presidency and returning power to the people's representatives. But I warn you, members of Congress, if you continue to violate your constitutional duty to serve your constituents and instead serve only yourselves and the big money interests you are indebted to, if you ignore the Constitution and attempt to protect the crooked, corporate-dominated status quo, I will go over your heads to the American people and ask them to retire all of you, regardless of party. In order to restore some semblance of our republic, we must give the people real choices, not false ones, like between the Republicrats and the Republicans, and Tweedledee and Tweedledum, and sometimes Tweedledum and Tweedledummer. And we must have an informed electorate, not a brainwashed electorate. This means we need electoral reform and media reform. First, electoral reform. The constitutional principle of one person, one vote, means that any method of voting which does not produce a paper ballot that can be counted, recounted, and audited if necessary is unconstitutional. I I ask Congress and the states to return to paper ballots, to institute full public financing of elections, proportional representation, preference voting, sometimes called instant runoff voting, abolition of burdensome petition requirements on third parties and independents, and so working people can actually vote, making Election Day a federal holiday. Now, many of these changes are designed to empower third parties. You see, there's nothing democratic about a two-party system when both parties are owned at the highest level by the same powerful interests. I also ask Congress to quickly pass a constitutional amendment restoring the original meaning of this document, and the amendment simply says, corporations and other fictitious entities are not persons under this Constitution. And shall have none of the rights and privileges thereof. And now, media reform. I am ordering the Federal Communications Commission to immediately reinstate the Fairness Doctrine and the ban on multiple ownership. It's time for a return to family-owned newspapers and radio and television stations. The monopoly media conglomerates must sell off their assets immediately. Sorry, Mr. Murdoch. The public airways are once again going to belong to the people and serve the public interest. It's not enough for a community to have a public access channel. All the channels ought to have public access. The key to ending fascism is to separate big money and political power. And we're taking immediate steps to do just that. Now, as you know, the previous administration was forced to resign after Bush and Cheney were arrested as war criminals. They were arrested by Pentagon officers who refused to carry out illegal orders to attack Iran. Bush and Cheney also faced court-martial proceedings for exploitation of the 9/11 tragedy to deceive this nation into unnecessary and illegal wars of aggression. For abuse of power as Commander-in-Chief and for violating the Constitution in their oath of office. The evidence of their guilt is absolutely overwhelming. Now, the Pentagon officers involved have been promoted or commended for following their oath of office, which is to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and then deploy the renegade president and vice president. Now, in reality, these officers had no choice because the Nuremberg principles enshrined in our Uniform Code of Military Justice say that we in the military have not only the right but the duty to disobey an illegal order. Remember, we executed Nazis for just following orders. If I or any member of my administration ever gives such an illegal order, I expect you to take similar action against us. Your duty to the Constitution far exceeds any perceived loyalty to any person. The real question about these events is why it fell to the military to take action. If you members of Congress had done your constitutional duty, these criminals would have been impeached long ago. It's a hackneyed expression. I know you've heard it before, but it's true. Clinton lied, no one died. If it was okay to impeach Bill Clinton for fibbing about an event which only embarrassed his family and soiled a blue dress, why did you refuse to impeach Cheney and Bush for deceiving us into a war costing so many thousands of lives? And listen up, my Republican friends. If it was okay for Richard Nixon to have to resign under threat of impeachment for covering up an attempt to peek at the other party's plans, why was it not right for you to immediately get rid of those responsible, not just for the 2 deadly wars of aggression, but for the loss of habeas corpus and posse comitatus, spying on American citizens, torturing suspects in the phony war on terror, saddling our grandchildren with more trillions in debt, giving away our sovereignty with the North American Union, for goodness sakes, and subverting the Constitution itself? Where is the accountability? By the way, the Constitution says the President and Vice President shall be removed, not may be removed, upon impeachment and conviction of such offenses. All you members of Congress who impeded impeachment are yourselves in violation of your oath of office, and your constituents are to remove you. There's also evidence of a massive cover-up with respect to 9/11 itself. The official 9/11 report, tightly controlled by the White House, amounts to little but a whitewash. I've spoken to both Governor Kane and Congressman Hamilton, and they admit that there are outright falsehoods in that final report, which of course they had no control over. They didn't write it. And that they were impeded in their work. When you combine this with the confiscation of evidence, audio tapes, videotapes, black boxes, and other evidence by the FBI, it's clear that regardless of who was responsible for 9/11, the subsequent cover-up was itself a conspiracy involving elements of the White House and the intelligence establishment. And again, you members of Congress who voted against a new investigation are accessories to that conspiracy. Now, I guess I've been somewhat hard on Congress, I think rightly so, but we have a chance for a new beginning. I expect to have a close working relationship with the new congressional leadership. The minority leader is a man I greatly admire and respect, Congressman Ron Paul of Texas. And the Speaker of the House is an old personal friend and a great patriot, Congressman Dennis Kucinich. As you probably remember, he got the job when Nancy Pelosi lost her seat to Congresswoman Cindy King. But I digress. Back to 9/11. The American people have still not been told who was really responsible for 9/11. Dedicated researchers have proven that it could not have happened the way the Bush administration said it did. I'm an old interceptor pilot. Hijacked airliners do not fly around for an hour and 40 minutes without being intercepted, unless our air defense system was deliberately sabotaged. Indestructible black boxes. By the way, they're not really black, they're bright orange, but never mind. Indestructible black boxes do not evaporate in the same fire from which an unharmed passport floats to the street below. Steel skyscrapers do not collapse at free-fall speed because of a kerosene fire. Steel skyscrapers do not collapse at all because of a kerosene fire. Never have and never will. And of course, Building 7 wasn't even struck by an aircraft. The truth about 9/11 is that after 7 years, we still don't know the truth about 9/11, and we should, and so should the families of victims. I am therefore appointing a commission to conduct a new and truly independent investigation of 9/11. This investigation will be co-chaired by David Gray Griffin and Richard Gage, and coordinated by my Vice President, Cynthia McKinney. Never again must we allow this nation to be stampeded into war under false pretenses. Now, 9/11 is not the only truth we are concerned about. There have been many other cover-ups, including the murders of a number of our soldiers in the field, most of them women. If the Pentagon won't do a proper investigation, we'll do it for them. Parents have a right to know what really happened to soldiers like Pat Tillman and Lavina Johnson. How many of you know who Lavina Johnson? Oh, very few of you. Okay. Lavina Johnson was a private in the U.S. Army, volunteer in Iraq, 19-year-old, lovely young African-American girl, a virgin, devout Christian. She was found in a Halliburton tent, shot through the head, severe bruises all over her head and body, her hands burned. Acid had been poured on her genitals in an apparent attempt to destroy DNA evidence. The Army has ruled it a suicide. A government that honors the truth must uncover the truth and then tell the truth, and we are going to do just that. Now, we have at times, including I think the last few years, had a government with bad policies. But we're a good people. What we have long needed is a government that reflects the values and goodness of the American people. Our values and goodness are not reflected by a government which cooperates with big business to export our jobs and import cheap illegal labor, driving down wages for all American workers. You know, they don't want you to know this, but in spite of soaring productivity, real wages in this country today are a third of what they were in the 1950s. A third. If worker pay had kept up with executive pay, the typical worker would today be making $1.2 million a year. And the minimum wage would be $217 an hour. Now, of course, I'm not promising you that, but we are taking immediate steps to aid American workers. I asked Congress to pass legislation indexing the minimum wage for inflation, placing tariffs on the importation of goods manufactured by corporations who move jobs around the country. And limiting the corporate income tax deduction for executive compensation to 20 times the salary of their lowest paid worker. Amen. The ratio between CEO pay and worker pay used to be 20-1. Now it's over 600-1. This is a free country. Corporations can pay their executives whatever they want, but we don't have to give them a tax deduction for it. Our values and goodness are not reflected by a government which helps corporations despoil God's creation for profit. True conservatism demands that we preserve the land, the air, and the water for our grandchildren and their grandchildren for generations to come. And fiscal responsibility demands that polluters clean up their messes, not taxpayers. We will initiate bold programs in solar and wind energy with subsidies and tax breaks to make them not only competitive but superior in the marketplace. At the same time, the Department of Energy will impose a ban on the construction of new fossil fuel and nuclear power plants. I have 3 degrees in nuclear engineering, and theoretically, nuclear power plants can be made quite safe. But there is still no safe way to get rid of the radioactive waste. And until there is, there can be no new nuclear power plants. I'm requesting new CAFE standards, doubling the gas mileage of cars and light trucks. And that's just for starters. This will be coordinated by my Secretary of Transportation, Ralph Nader. There is no industrial free lunch, and there should be no corporate welfare.
Yeah.
Our values and goodness are not reflected by a government which violates international law in its conflicts and denies its own citizens their constitutional rights. I have therefore ordered the release of all those being detained without charge. The closure of the prison at Guantanamo Bay we'll find somewhere else for Bush and Cheney. And the end of the rendition program in which suspects are kidnapped and taken to secret foreign prisons to be tortured. I've pardoned a host of political prisoners, including Leonard Peltier, Mumia Abu-Jamal, and Border Patrol agents Campion and Ramos. See, at least a few of you will watch me dogs. I'm also pardoning all those incarcerated for possession or use of marijuana. And I'm directing the Secretary of Agriculture to support the production of industrial hemp. Those addicted to heroin and cocaine should be in treatment, not in jail. The failed war on drugs is over. All contracts for mercenaries, and by the way, the Constitution forbids the use of mercenaries. All contracts for mercenaries, including all contracts with Blackwater, are immediately canceled. This includes contracts with the DOD, the CIA, the State Department, and the Department of Homeland Security, which, by the way, is being abolished. Our values and goodness are not reflected by a government which launches unnecessary wars of aggression. I could speak for an hour on what we've done to the people of Iraq, but let's just look at what we've done to our own. Over 4,000 of our finest have died. The lives of over 30,000 of our injured soldiers will never be the same. Tens of thousands of our young men and women have severe psychological problems because of what they have seen and what they have done. Hundreds of thousands have been poisoned with depleted uranium and will suffer lives of pain and disability and will father thousands of children with severe birth defects. Our military services are depleted and demoralized. The VA system is underfunded and overwhelmed. The National Guard and Reserves have been subjected to tour after tour, disrupting lives for even the lucky ones who return unscathed. Jobs have been lost, marriages have been destroyed, homes have been foreclosed, children have been estranged. And for what? We have alienated our allies around the world, made new enemies, and created thousands of new recruits for Osama bin Laden, whether he's dead or alive. And the longer we stay, the worse it will get, and the more we will endanger the American people. Consequently, I have asked the United Nations to send peacekeepers to Iraq to do a job we simply cannot do as an occupying army. But whether or not they comply, within 3 months, we are going to support what's left of our troops by bringing them home while they're still alive. I've also ordered a permanent halt to the use of depleted uranium weapons. They will be destroyed and stored as a dangerous radioactive waste. They really are. Our values and goodness are not reflected by creating thousands of disabled veterans in wars of aggression and then refusing to take proper care of them. The signature wound of the Iraq War has been brain trauma, and yet the Bush administration slashed the budget for the Brain Trauma Center by 50%. The cost of caring for the disabled veterans from the Iraq War alone will be in the trillions of dollars. Yet it is a cost we must bear. The care of our soldiers wounded in action, racked by PTSD, and poisoned by depleted uranium is not a discretionary expenditure to be avoided by delayed denial and bureaucratic red tape. It is a solemn obligation of this government, and it will be met. Our new Secretary for Veterans Affairs, Senator Max Cleland, will see to that. Our values and goodness are not reflected by a government which poisons 3 million Vietnamese with Agent Orange and 2 million Iraqis with depleted uranium and then walks away. We're going to provide medical care for these victims. It's time we took at least some responsibility for our actions. Similarly, we will take care of the World Trade Center first responders and rescue workers suffering from respiratory illnesses. They suffer because the previous administration told them the air was safe to breathe when they knew it was not. Our values and goodness are not reflected by a government which promotes a globalization which depresses living standards at home and allows corporations to destroy the quality of life in banana republics and client states around the world. NAFTA has not only cost us millions of manufacturing jobs, it has also allowed Archer Daniels Midland to undercut the price of corn in Mexico, driving millions of Mexican family farmers off the land and across our border as illegal immigrants. In addition, the World Trade Organization, the International Monetary Fund, and the World Bank have caused untold suffering around the world. If we can't reform them, we will abolish them. With respect to our relations with the government of Mexico, I have ordered the cancellation of the Security and Prosperity Partnership for North American Union. Termination of the NAFTA superhighway, which would have cut both the United States and Canada in half and put all our longshoremen and truckers out of work. And the suspension of NAFTA completely until Mexico gives its workers union rights, protections for health, safety, and the environment, and wages at least comparable to our minimum wage. That's exactly what the European Union did when Spain, Greece, and Turkey wanted to join. They said, fine, but you're not going to be a pool of cheap labor driving down standards for our workers. You bring your workers' standards up to ours, and then you can have membership. And that's what we should have done with Mexico before we signed NAFTA. if Mexico wants to trade with us, we can force them to improve the lives of their workers, and then they won't have to come here to try and feed their families. Our values and goodness are not reflected by a system in which all our personal income taxes go to pay interest on a staggering national debt created out of thin air. The Constitution authorizes Congress to coin our money, not a private cartel. I ask Congress to eliminate the debt-based monetary system and pass legislation abolishing the Federal Reserve. Our values and goodness are not reflected by a government which uses our money to train death squads in the techniques of torture, intimidation, and assassination. The School of the Americas, by whatever name they choose to call it, is closed. Our values and goodness are not reflected by a government which gives most favored nation status to the butchers of Tiananmen Square and places an illegal secondary embargo on the impoverished people of Cuba. The embargo of Cuba just ended. I recognize that we need advanced information on the activities of Al-Qaeda and those who wish to do us harm. But our values and goodness are not reflected by, and our security is not enhanced by an organization that promotes instability, insurrection, tyranny, torture, terrorism, murder, and war around the world in our name and with our money. John F. Kennedy and Jimmy Carter attempted to reform the CIA to get them to stick to gathering intelligence. They failed. I'm not going to try. As of this moment, I am abolishing the CIA. The many outstanding analysts in the CIA, and by the way, they were right on Iraq, they were right on Iran. The twists came higher up in the government. These outstanding analysts will be transferred to other agencies, including the Defense Intelligence Agency. This will be coordinated by my Director of Intelligence, Ray McGovern. And he will also see to it that the activities of the NSA and the NRO follow the law and respect the constitutional rights of our citizens. The days of warrantless wiretaps and using librarians as snitches is over. Our values and goodness are not reflected by a government which sends its working class youth around the world to kill the sons and daughters of working people in other countries. Our values and goodness are not reflected by sending our children to the Middle East to kill Arabs for the oil companies so they can profit by selling the oil under other people's sand, making us the target of terrorists. No more Iraqs. No more Kosovos. No more El Salvadors. These are not isolated incidents of stupidity. They're part of a long, bloody history of foreign policy being conducted for the financial benefit of the wealthy few. It's a new form of colonialism. It violates our Constitution. It endangers our national security. It mortgages our future. It sacrifices our children. And it will never happen again. As President, I will use the men and women in our armed forces to protect our borders and our people. Period. Not the financial interests of Bechtel, Folgers, Chiquita Banana, Exxon, and Halliburton. This one change in military mission, eliminating the unconstitutional mission of protecting the global financial interests of multinational corporations, will allow us to have more national security and reduce the defense budget by 80%. taking steps to see that unconstitutional missions can never be added back in the future. I've ordered the new Secretary of Defense, Admiral William Fallon, to begin an immediate recall of our forces all around the world. Think of it, after 63 years, the occupation of Germany and Japan has finally come to an end. With the exception of small Marine detachments guarding our embassies, all our military will be home within 3 months, and all overseas bases will be returned to the host countries. Needless to say, there will be no nuclear attack on Iran. My special envoy to the Middle East, Jimmy Carter, will be meeting with them to iron out our differences. And once he is finished there, he will straighten out the Israelis and the Palestinians. Our values and goodness are not reflected by a government which for decades has been in violation of its treaty responsibilities to disarmament. I've ordered a halt to the design, testing, and production of nuclear weapons, and have directed the Secretary of State, Senator Mike Gravel, to open negotiations toward the rapid and total abolition of nuclear weapons. Finally, I'd like to speak directly to the American people. I'm unlikely to last long in this job. Partly because I have terminal cancer from Agent Orange, and partly because there are powerful interests like insurance companies, oil companies, and bankers with hundreds of billions of reasons for wanting me assassinated. By the way, if you hear that I have suddenly committed suicide by shooting myself in the back with a shotgun, a long one, 3 times, you might want to be just a little suspicious. They'll call you a conspiracy theorist, but be suspicious anyway. But you know, it won't matter. They can kill me, but they can't kill what we started. It's too late for that. My words heard tonight by a few will tomorrow reach many. And if the corporate media won't carry it, YouTube will. My faith is that you, the American people, will not let the vision die with me. I'm unlikely to get there with you, but like Brother Martin, I have been to the mountaintop. And I have seen the promised land. What I have seen is an America in which every person, regardless of race, creed, color, age, or sexual orientation, is valued and lives in dignity. Every person is cared for. And every person is free to reach his or her full potential. It's an America in which every family can be supported by one wage earner with one job paying a living wage. It's an America in which health care is provided to all as a right through a single-payer national health program. Now, as a conservative, I believe that the only fiscally responsible way to provide health care is to eliminate the profit, the overhead, the red tape, and the interference between doctor and patient of the insurance companies by kicking them out of health care altogether. I see an America in which educators and teachers are highly valued and financially compensated accordingly. It's an America in which policemen, nurses, poets, firefighters, teachers, and garbage collectors can afford a nice house in a good neighborhood and live in comfort. Not just CEOs and brain surgeons and scientists and rock stars and lawyers and basketball players. It's an America in which faith is respected, culture is preserved, the arts are supported, and the Constitution is actually followed. It's an America that seeks not to be king of the world, nor subservient to the World Trade Organization, but to be a responsible, sovereign member of the family of nations. Nothing more, nothing less. An America that is free of the threat of terrorism because it is no longer feared and hated.
Right.
Because it no longer does hateful things to people all around the world. It's an America that leads the world, not just with military might, but with its vision, its compassion, its democracy, its productivity, its freedom, its standard of living, its care for the global environment, its treatment of its own people, and its goodness. Above all, it's an America at peace with the world and with its own people. That's the America I have seen. The America our people deserve, and the America you can build. Now, it won't be easy. The billionaires will fight us every step of the way. They will attempt to shut down our food supply, our gasoline supply, our economy. If they do, we will respond. We will nationalize industries if we have to. We will use the National Guard to get supplies through. After all, they won't be in Iraq anymore. If necessary, we will print interest-free money like Lincoln's greenbacks. Those who have been for so long above the law will be so no longer. We will preserve this nation and our Constitution. But I can't do it alone. Each of you must do your part. Spread the word. Keep the vision alive. Drop your own pebbles in the pond and make some waves. Run for office. Never settle for anything less than a government which follows the Constitution, honors the truth, and serves the people. It matters not if my presidency is real or fanciful. My part is done. It is finished. The rest is in your hands. The future and the vision and the dream itself depend on you. May God sustain you in your efforts and bless America through your actions. We the people can win. We the people must win. We the people will win. Thank you very much. Don't go anywhere. I'm going to make 2 more changes right now. First, this will be the first inaugural address followed by a question and answer period. And second, this will be the first inaugural address followed by taking up a collection. Before we do that, my wife Maggie is going to distribute cards, Patriot cards, telling about our organization. Thank you. And what we stand for. And the white card, and by the way, that blue card, on the back on the red stripe is our home address, our home telephone number, email address, and website.
He also forgot to announce that he's going to be hiring me as the Secretary of the Department of Peace.
Now, the white card is a sign-up card for you to join the Patriots. We have about 23,000 so far. It doesn't cost anything. We have no dues. It also doesn't mean that you agree with everything I said. That's just me. All it means is you want a government that follows the Constitution, honors the truth, and serves the people. And that sounds like you sign up. You'll be getting our newsletter. We send out about 2 paper newsletters a year to your snail mail address. And we send out probably around 4 email newsletters a year to your email address. The email address is very important. It's our primary means of communication. But we do want the other information there too. Email addresses, though, are very sensitive. If we get even one character wrong because we can't read your writing, it won't work, and we will never know why, and you won't hear from us, and you will never know why. So please print carefully. Upper and lowercase don't make any difference with email, so you can use all block letters if you want. We sometimes have trouble telling the difference between an L and a 1, or between an O and a 0. So please help us out and print carefully. Once this is all done, Maggie will be passing the basket around for your donations to the Patriots to help with our expenses. The Patriots is a 501c3, so everything you give is tax deductible. Also, we do not have any salaries. We are all volunteers. But we do have expenses. Right now we're in the midst of a 4.5-month-long speaking tour, 17,000 miles driving in our little old motorhome, and it costs money. And so we do need your help. Please be as generous as you can. If you'd like to write a check, make it to the Patriots. And when the basket comes around, you can put your sign-up cards in it if you're finished. If you haven't finished, don't worry about it. We'll have the basket available up front here throughout the question and answer period until we leave. So we do encourage you to put your sign-up card in there, and also as generous a contribution as you can. And while all this is happening, I am open for questions.
Yeah.
Please form a line at the microphone, and that way we'll have some order.
I want to tell you that was a fantastic speech. I'm very sorry I didn't bring my video camera. That should be on YouTube. Is it on YouTube already?
I believe it is.
I've recorded it. It's going to be on the internet TV, so everybody that has, I have your email. I just recorded it.
That's not fair to you, is it?
On video?
On video.
Okay.
On the video.
You got it on video.
Can you say treason? We didn't hear you say treason.
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess I didn't put that word in. You have to understand that this is a condensation of something that would take me 2 to 4 hours to do completely. And, but yes, last year I did repeat some of the speeches that I made before the Iraq War started, in which I pointed out that if Cheney and Bush went ahead with the war, it would be an impeachable offense, a war crime against the people of Iraq, and treason against the United States of America, and I still believe that today. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about the assets.
Oh, okay. You're supposed to, I guess, go to the mic if you can.
Oh, they wrote it on.
I think that's not only for everybody's benefit here, but for the recording. That's right.
Okay, my question is with the impeachments and assuming that Bush and Cheney get put in jail for war crimes amongst their cronies, how does that work as far as the money that they've taken, their profits and everything how does that get returned to the taxpayer, to the American people?
Well, I guess depends on what happens. A very good question. Impeachment itself will only get them out of office and will eliminate their retirement pay as president, vice president, their Secret Service protection, and their library.
Because my question is as far as them profiting from the high crimes and misdemeanors.
But that's another thing. You see, that's all impeachment can do, but that's quite a bit.
Right.
But they can also be indicted for civil offenses, and in court they can not only be prosecuted for their crimes, but they can be fined for restoration of the millions or billions that they have stolen from the taxpayers. That is possible in civil court.
Yes, and I believe that the American people own a lot of property in Paraguay.
Right. You are. Yes, ma'am.
It seems like one of the reasons we have so many of these problems is we no longer have a media.
Yeah. We no longer have a free press.
Free press, that's what I meant.
That's right.
Yeah, and we do have the internet, but a lot of very intelligent people I know don't believe anything until they see it on CNN or something. I don't really know how they think. What concrete, actual things need to be done to restore our ownership of the public airwaves?
Well, it could be done by a president just doing it, just like I did in my speech. However, before we get to that point, we probably got a lot of preliminary steps to do, because as things stand now, ever since John F. Kennedy, every nominee of both the Republican and Democratic Party has not only been a member of the Trilateral Commission, but has been handpicked by the Trilateral Commission to get the nomination. This is so that in November, the billionaires can sit back and not worry about it, because whoever wins, it's going to be one of their guys. And so they can order them around. Now, sometimes a president tries to go against them. Jimmy Carter tried to go against his boss, the Zbigniew Brzezinski. And Brzezinski essentially had to take the presidency out of Carter's hands. Obama has the same boss, Zbigniew Brzezinski. And Obama may also try, I hope, to go against them, but it'll be a struggle. And he's very young and inexperienced, and it will be very difficult for him to go against the wishes and directions of these high-powered people that he has surrounded himself with. But I hope he tries. When I say that both parties are owned by the same powerful interests at the highest level, that does not mean that I'm telling you it makes no difference whatsoever who gets elected. I do not believe that. I've met both Obama and McCain, and to be frank with you, John McCain scares the bejeebers out of me. I don't want him anywhere near the non-existent button. I personally know that twice in recent history, the military nuclear chain of command in the White House has taken the button out of the hand of the president. Now, there isn't really a button. the president just orders the guy with the suitcase, the football, it's a briefcase with the nuclear codes in it. He orders him to execute a nuclear attack. And all he has to do to stop it is not to do anything. And once under Nixon and once under Reagan, those folks in the nuclear chain of command in the White House made those decisions and told me about it. That once after Reagan was shot, and then later when Nixon, or earlier, when Nixon was under threat of impeachment, they figured that he was so unbalanced, that if he suddenly said nuke the Russians, that they were going to say, "Why, sir?" And unless, in their words, there was a damn good answer, nothing was going to happen. So, we were never as close to World War III as many people feared, no matter how irrational a president became. But, we can't always count on having really rational people in the White House with a president. And, you can always run into a General Kurt LeMay or something, and we just don't want to take that chance. I would rather have a commander-in-chief that we can trust to be rational and not a gun-toting cowboy.
Do you believe that the loose nukes incident, that we are safe from that now, or do you know if they've been somehow controlled so that we're not in danger from that?
No, I wouldn't say the danger is over, but I think you're referring, she was asking about are we safe from the loose nukes, that the nuclear weapons that were flown from Minot Air Force Base to Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana. One of those nuclear weapons may not have been accounted for, and I haven't been able to find out. We do know that flight was not an accident. From my own experience with nuclear weapons, and also I spoke with the nuclear safety officer of Minot Air Force Base, and he says it's absolutely impossible for that to have been an accident. Someone purposely put those nuclear weapons on that plane for a reason. And, of course, since Barksdale is the jumping off point for the Middle East, we suspect that B-52 was on its way to Iran. And loyal Air Force officers blew the whistle on it. So there has been, for some time now, a raging battle within the Pentagon and within the CIA for the heart and soul of this country. And right now, I think we're winning. I think that cooler heads are prevailing. My letter, which is now a year and a week old, I sent an open letter to the generals and admirals in the Pentagon September 13, 2007. And if you haven't seen it, you can read it on my website, in which I went through a long explanation of why it was absolutely essential that they had an absolute duty to refuse any order to attack Iran, and also that they should consider whether the circumstance warrant them arresting whoever gave the order as a war criminal. Since then, a number of generals and admirals have been fired or forced to retire, but they can't purge them all. And the indication now is that they have the upper hand, and they're starting to purge the ones who were following Cheney. I think the chances of a war against Iran are much less now than they were a year ago.
Dr. Bowman, you worked on 6 Hands of Missile Defense under the the so-called Star Wars program. So there's interesting developments happening in geopolitics. A missile site has been established, an anti-missile site in Poland. Allegedly, we're told to defend Europe against missiles from rogue states like Iran. Of course, Mr. Putin immediately offered an even better base in Azerbaijan on the border of Iran, and Mr. Bush was a little bit flat-footed by that. Insisted for some reason it has to be Poland and Czechoslovakia. There is a gradual encirclement of Russia and the Federation states by actions of provocation in Georgia, color-coded revolutions in Ukraine, Georgia, elsewhere. How do you see, what would be your direction in terms of a different foreign policy with dealing with the former Soviet Union, Russia?
Well, I believe that if NATO is to continue to exist, and I'm not saying whether it should or not at this point, if NATO is to continue to exist, I believe that Russia should be invited to join. I think that's the only way it makes sense. Otherwise, they're going to feel like they are being encircled, and in fact, they are. And that's one of the things that bothers me about Zbigniew Brzezinski, is that he really wants to take Russia down. And that's a real problem. And we have to somehow, if Obama becomes president, we have to somehow get some countervailing advice to him.
Two questions. How come Brzezinski has so much power? And why does Brzezinski have so much power? Second question is your speech available in text form, a transcript of it, for emailing?
Brzezinski has a great deal of power because he is a very key player in the Trilateral Commission founded by David Rockefeller at Chase Manhattan Bank. Sort of a key action point in the old Rothschild network. My speech, I'm revising a little bit every day. It's not on my website yet, but I have a version pretty much like what you heard tonight in my computer, and I can email it upon request. And eventually it'll get up on my website when I'm finished with it. Yes?
Do you think that this current corporate welfare that we're about to engage in, taking care of all these things, is part of a plan, or is this something that's happened a little sooner than they had anticipated it happened?
Well, I don't really know how they wanted to orchestrate this, but and I hope that it can be pulled off in a way that homeowners can be protected somewhat, and not just the big investors, and that somehow the taxpayers can recoup. Now, it's my understanding that from the bailout of Chrysler, for example, that the taxpayers were repaid in full. There have been other bailouts that have worked out. There have been others that have not, and I think the savings and loan scandal, Neil Bush and all of those, I think that's one of the cases where the taxpayers really took a bath. This may be another such case. It's just too early, and I don't have any more information on this than you probably have from the internet sources. I have not had a chance to talk to anybody on the inside and get any better information than what you have available. I wish I did.
Hi, Dr. Bowman.
Hi.
Thank you so much for your wonderful speech. I'm curious about
the fact that three of the most powerful cities internationally, Washington D.C., London, and Rome, the center of them are all separate countries or separate corporations. I'm not sure the right terms. They're separate states that aren't accountable to the country at large, and how those three states interconnect with the Rothschild and the powers that be that are profiting from what's happening now. And thinking of Rome as the spiritual center, London as the financial center, and DC as the military center. And I'm wondering if you have any opinion about that.
No, it makes all the sense in the world. We do have to understand that the imperialism that is being practiced now is not American imperialism. It is corporate imperialism. They are just using the armed forces of the United States to do their work for them. They have no loyalty to this country or any other. And one of my messages to young people in the military is that the military is an honorable profession, but they must be aware that it only remains so if the missions they are to perform are on behalf of the American people and not on behalf of transnational corporations that have no loyalty to our country whatsoever. And that's something that the young people in this country need to understand. Any others? Yes.
This isn't a question, but well, kind of is actually. You said something about ways in nuclear physics, and that just
Yeah, you want to come to the mic? You can.
Sure. You were mentioning something about 3 degrees in nuclear physics or something, and
yeah.
And so, the reason I bring it up is you said you didn't know a way to clean up the radioactive waste. So.
Well, I know that theoretically there are ways to reduce the amount of it through reprocessing, and it's being done in France.
Cool.
But what it does at this point, the end result is a smaller volume of very dangerous, highly radioactive waste, and still a significant danger that some of the byproducts can be useful in nuclear weapons. So we have to be very careful how all this is done, and I don't think we can just adopt the French model. I don't think it's good enough.
Good, cool. I just want to add one thing. I saw this thing, some Australian scientists took Brown's gas, and you're aware Brown's gas, it's you take water and you electrolyze it and separate it into hydrogen and oxygen. And then they blasted a piece of radioactive waste with this Brown's gas, and it basically blew up, but the radiation practically disappeared.
I'd be very suspicious.
Yeah,
I really would.
I haven't tested myself, but
you know, what I know about radioactive isotopes, the only way to end the radioactivity of a radioactive isotope is to break it into other particles. Usually, when that is done, the subsequent particles are themselves radioactive, sometimes more highly radioactive than the parent.
Right.
And in many cases, enormous energy comes with it, like with a nuclear explosion or a nuclear reaction. And in some of the cases, it takes enormous energy input to accomplish it. I don't see any such. It's tantamount to the old thing of turning lead into gold. I don't think we have that technology.
Thanks.
Hi. I have a question. What, in your opinion, would be, what effect would it have if individuals or coalitions of individuals would sue politicians and government officials for violating their oath of office?
Well, I'd sure like to see that. I'd like to see a mechanism for doing that, either individually or collectively. There are a lot of things going on right now, including we have lawyers trying to line up attorney generals and whatnot to prosecute Bush and Cheney for murder, for sending our troops to Iraq under false pretenses. There are a lot of things going on in various states calling for impeachment and so forth. If you have any ideas of how something like this might be done, email them to me, because we have a network of lawyers who are looking for ways to help the problem. So, thank you. By the way, one thing that people can do, and your coalition here, I think, is a wonderful idea. My organization, the Patriots, has for the last year been forming chapters around the country. And we have quite a number of chapters now. The chapters run their own affairs and decide what their priorities are and so forth. They're all sort of bound together by our overall theme of demanding a government that follows the Constitution, honors the truth, and serves the people. And when the local chapter makes up their mind whether they want to have dues or whatever, that's strictly up to them. But the only thing we need at the national level is the name, address, phone number, email address, the contact information for the organizer or head of the local chapter. We publish that on our website so that people in the geographical area will know who to contact and to join a local chapter of the Patriots. We have a lot of visits to our national website. There's a lot of good information on it. My Issues A to Z page, I take specific issues, a paragraph on over 60 different issues. So there's a lot of meat in the website, and there's also a page on the website devoted to the chapters. So that's another thing that people want to start a chapter of the Patriots. A lot of you indicated you'd like to be a member of the Patriots. I can sort of put you together with whoever is willing to organize it, and you can have at it. Local people can choose to join the chapter or not if they wish. But we'd be very happy to work with local people to try and help you with your exploits. I don't know if I answered your question or not.
Well, I don't know if I asked you one yet.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
I wanted to thank you for taking us through your America tonight. That was a lot of fun, very refreshing.
Thank you.
And I saw you on TV in Los Angeles with that fellow, Mr. Jones, and it was a great symposium. I just stumbled across it, and it helped me realize what happened on 9/11. It took me about 2.5 years, 3 years to really figure out what really happened that day. And we all have our stories or our own episodes and reasons for why we believe we do about that. But I wanted to ask you, are you aware that when you go to buy Treasury notes online, that our government gives us about a 2.5% less dividend than it gives foreigners, than it gives Easterners, Asian companies. And even in talking about the bailout a week ago, I saw one of the administration economists explained that when we do this, we're going to have to assure the foreign markets that we give them more than we give our own investors when the bailout money comes, because we just have to borrow money from them. We're stuck borrowing money from them. We can't borrow money fast enough from them. We had to wait for our checks. And I bring this up because, once again, in 2012, we're being told from different angles that the world is going to end. December 21st, the equinox of 2012. And of course, we were told this back in 2000. And I'm just wondering if perhaps after 2012 finally happens, somewhere along the line, do you think this country is going to realize that the world is not going to end? The debt will have to be paid. We will have to continue this mess that we made for us. And let's get over it and do it and come up with a plan to do it. Anyway, I know that's not much of a question, but were you aware of that?
Well, no, because I have no money to go out and buy securities.
Yes, I understand.
Totally unaware.
Go to that U.S. Treasury website and you will fall over when you see that they will pay foreigners more money than us for buying U.S. Treasury bonds. It's amazing.
But one thing, I do believe is that we should quit paying hundreds of billions of dollars in interest every year to a private cartel, the Federal Reserve, when they haven't put a penny of their own money up. They're making interest on money that they just print. And they're not risking a penny of their money. No, there is no gold behind it. No. As a matter of fact, we don't really know whether there's still gold in Fort Knox or not. I understand there's more in the World Trade Center than there is in Fort Knox anyway, but the gold does not back up our currency. That much we do know. Yes.
Okay, I know it's getting late. I'll just be quick. I have not heard any school of thought that really seems to tell us any way that we would really get control of our government again that isn't fanciful. And I wonder why it is that the organizations that do promote protests, strikes, that sort of thing, don't act like a union and have everybody do it at the same time. And so that's an idea I want to actually just float out there for people to think about in their organizations. And if you have a reaction, I'd like to hear it. The only person I know of who's been involved in that is a guy who has this votestrike.com website. I helped him do some of his editing, but I haven't heard anything else along those lines.
Well, there have been a lot of nationwide strikes proposed. The great danger in them is that they get called and nothing happens. And because the media studiously ignores any such thing, it's very hard to communicate this to everyone and to get everyone on board, whether it's a boycott or a strike or what it is. And the only significance of those things is either they get media attention, which they don't, or they cause the corporations so much financial pain that they have to knuckle under to our demands. That's a very difficult thing to pull off. Now, my approach is more bottom-up electoral approach, changing the makeup of the state legislature so that your state legislature then changes the way elections are held, changes the electoral laws in your state so that we empower third parties state by state, and eventually we can change the nature of Congress, and then Congress changes laws, and eventually it bubbles up to where we can actually elect a president who will serve us instead of the big money interests. But that's going to take a while, I think, because I don't think we can do it top down. I think it has to be done bottom up. I would love to have it done just by having the president read this kind of an inaugural address and go forward with it. But I don't think it's going to happen that way. I think it's going to happen from the bottom up. It's the hard way. Yes.
Hi. You mentioned in your address about the how you feel the military is kind of helping to prevent us from attacking Iran. So I would think they're kind of on our side in a way. But one thing that really alarmed me this year was at the conventions, especially the RNC, the strong police presence, the way they treated the protesters, the aggression. It was just something I've never seen before. It seems to be escalating. So my question is, where do the loyalties of the police lie? It seems like it's different than the military, and how can we get that back under control? How can we get the police to be on our side, the people's side again?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and the RNC thing, it sort of reminded me of Chicago 1968, I guess it was. And there are a lot of places around the country where our movement has cultivated the police and have the police very much on their side. And they let the police know in advance when they're going to do a protest or a demonstration or whatnot. They get the police helping them when they leaflet or petition or something in the mall, and the mall manager tells them they can't do it. They call the police, and the police comes and say, yeah, they have a right to do it. And here's the law that protects their right to do it. And so it's a mixed bag. And I'm sure that the RNC was very careful in recruiting people that would do the kind of things that they did. Yes.
Amy Goodman's show about Democracy Now! She pointed out the fact that the RNC had put up $10 million bond for the police in St. Paul to cover them if they had any suits for illegal arrests and so forth. Isn't that actionable on the part of the citizenry against the police that they support by tax money?
Conflict of interest.
Yeah. I didn't get all of what you said.
The Republican National Committee put up a bond that told the police they would put up $10 million to defend them if the police.
To defend the police.
To defend the police if they were brought up on action for illegal behavior. So many of them, incidentally, did not have name tags or any kind of identification on.
That sounds very much to me like a conflict of interest. Yeah.
So is that possible for a suit?
I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. That's one thing I haven't done in my career. Yes, ma'am.
My question is that now clearly a lot of people here, yourself are included, are well aware that 9/11 was an inside job, and Bush and Cheney were aware of this. And now let's just go on the assumption that, as I certainly hope it will happen, is that the impeachments do happen and it becomes public knowledge. How do you expect how would you now prepare the average person who does not want to accept the fact that their own government did this to their own people? How would you expect to prepare them to stop anarchy basically in this country?
Well, that's a good question. You have to understand, I never say 9/11 was an inside job. We know that there had to be some people in positions to be able to stand down our interceptors, to put explosives in the buildings. If that's what we mean by inside job, yes, but as far as accusing specific people, Bush, Cheney, whatever, Bush himself may have been totally clueless and left out of the loop, as for all I know. sure, Cheney is, I think, on the top of everybody's suspect list. But, you know, what we should do is make sure that we get an investigation that really finds out who done it. And then we don't have to tell the American people, your government did this to you. All we have to say is, we have been lied to and we want the truth. We want to know who really did this. Were they Pakistanis? Were they Israelis? Were they Saudis? Were they Americans? Was it Silverstein for financial reasons? Was it rogue elements of the FBI? We just simply don't know, and we want to find out. When the investigation gets to the bottom of it and we really find out the truth, the American people will accept it. They won't accept it from us.
No, I mean, I absolutely agree with you what you're saying about the investigations, but I'm talking for the emotional aspect of this does happen, this does happen, and soon, in the next few months, say that does happen. How is that going to affect, do you think that's going to affect people emotionally who at the moment do not want to accept that their government had knowledge of this?
Well, the big thing, and I think the great value of the 9/11 Truth Movement, is that we are deterring the perpetrators from doing it again. Because there's no doubt that the Cheney faction of our government wants to attack Iran. And there's no doubt that they would be very happy to do another false flag attack as an excuse to make it happen. We have to make them know that we're watching, and if they try it again, we're going to catch them red-handed. And I think that's one of the things that's deterring them from doing it again.
Yeah, I just hope that people can get across to people like about 9/11 a bit more, so that different people need different approaches to attack, to get to them, make them listen, so that when the truth comes out, which I believe it will at one time, that people aren't going to be so unprepared and just.
Well, you know, when it finally comes out, people will be all right with it. They'll accept it. But it's hard for us to get it across. If you want to catch somebody, if you want to wake up somebody, a friend, a coworker, one of the things I recommend is my 3-minute smoking gun video. It's just about Building 7. It's a DVD. It's 3 minutes long. It's on my website. You can download it, copy it, distribute it all you want. I find it extremely effective in lobbying, for example. You can't get people up in Congress to sit down and watch 2-hour video of loose change or zeitgeist or whatever the heck. But they will sit down and watch a 3-minute DVD, and we have found it very useful in our lobbying efforts.
I think people need to be prepared for the truth to come out, because I do believe it will.
Thank you.
That was exactly what I was going to also talk about. DVDs, giving out DVDs to the police, as she asked. Patriots Question 9/11 has a link at the bottom that links to all the media in the United States. You can input a zip code. And 9/11 Revisited has a link to all the public stations. And this gentleman is fortifying the effort to get shows on public TV. So that's how we can reach police and military, I think.
Okay. We've got to wrap this up, so maybe just another question.
Yeah, actually, it's a quick comment with maybe a reflection on your part. I had a conversation with Scott Ritter. I handed him my business card, and he said, he looked at it, and I was a union staffer, field rep, and organizer. And he says, how come? Because as we know, he's a recent convert to trying to get something done from our point of view. He says, how come the left hasn't really embraced some of the grassroots organizing techniques of somebody that he admired very much, which was Saul Alinsky. And Saul Alinsky is basically behind all of the grassroots organizing and discipline involved with the farm worker movement and Fred Ross, and all the way up to today. And I think there's some good examples of some grassroots organizing happening around us. But I think it's important for us to know that a certain amount of discipline, organization, and planning, and hard work involved with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, I just want to remind everyone that Dr. Barr will be speaking in Oceanside at the community room, 300 Civic Center. It's on Wednesday, the 24th of September at 7 p.m. So if you want to catch him again, then come out on the 24th. I'll be sending an email out again with that information on it. Also, I wanted to just thank you very much for coming. Really enjoyed the presentation.
It's going to be the same thing this Wednesday, so if you come, bring some other folks who haven't heard it.
Also, just want to let everybody know that Ralph Nader is going to be at UCSD 3 p.m. at Great Hall, Eleanor Roosevelt Room, and that's going to be on the 27th of September. He'll also be at 7:30 the same day at the La Paloma Theater in Encinitas. So if you want further information, just see me about that. Please pick up this flyer here. It has some movies that are coming up for the next month for Activist San Diego. Those are back in the back, and there's also a little pamphlet on the CPI data that's being held on the 16th of October. Yes.
On this sheet, there seems to be an oversight. We do have a film this Friday that's not on there, which is September the 26th, and it's called, I believe it's Life and Death. It's about Jamaica and how the World Bank insisted that Jamaica cut back on its social services and education and such, so that they would pay their debt back to the World Bank, and they pushed tourism and the disastrous effects of this. So for some reason there's an oversight.
Well, we'll make sure that we post it, and it'll be put up on the website for us. No problem. Does anyone have any announcements to make about your particular organizations before we close?
That was
sure.
And
Very shortly, PDA is bringing or posting a film called Uncounted about the up to 3 million votes every presidential election to go uncounted. I have tickets. The showings are Thursday the 27th, Thursday the 25th, Saturday the 27th next week. Excuse me.
I would like to mention that David Icke will be in Los Angeles October 1st. You can go to his website to find out the details and buy tickets. For those of you who can go to David Icke.
Sure.
That might
Been some recent developments with regard to the endorsements for Proposition 7, which is Solar and Clean Energy Initiative. Please pick up the brochure, go to the website. We have 3 Nobel laureates who just signed on, as well as S. David Freeman, who's an eco-pioneer, has run several utilities throughout the United States. He's president of the Port Commission in Los Angeles, and he also facilitated the founding of the Environmental Protection Agency and ran the Tennessee Valley Authority under Jimmy Carter's administration.
Okay, well, we're going to close now. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. And if you did get a chance, please leave a little donation for us to help us with our operation if you can. And there's flyers for the upcoming coalition meetings. Please take those and pass them up to the people and bring people back again next month. We're going to try to have more speaker series. And a reminder about our public access training coming up on the 10th of October. Thank you very much for coming out.